You're listening to 919. We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for reality radio as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. You're listening to 919. My name is Jack Devnarain and this is Reality Radio. It's as real as it gets. Every Friday night when we have a guest live in studio to talk about the incredible stories that shape their remarkable lives. Tonight, I have a young guest, a recent collection to my list of friends. This is a remarkable young man, a graduate, a content creator, producer, writer, a man who is a visionary, and he has so many wonderful creative ideas. And importantly, the founder of the Umphakathi Artists group. Please welcome Ntokozo Mlaba. Yeah, you can hear the crowd goes wild. Ntokozo, welcome, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Jack. That was amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, I love to hear some of the stories that you and I shared, because we met like, what was it, a month or so, 2 months back, less than that.
Yeah, just over a month ago.
The Global Arts Conference it was. And you were telling me then about this wonderful idea you have about people shooting short movies on their cell phones.
Yeah.
And you were going to have a screening for one of those little festivals. How many people did you get to participate to make those movies on their cell phones?
So we, it's part of the program that we run a number of programs at Umphakathi Artists. One of the programs that we run is the Hours program, where we facilitate extramural programs in public schools.
Yeah.
So because we're currently incapacitated, so it's a lot of independent work. So I do it. A lot of the work is done by myself.
Yeah.
So I teach film currently at the National School of the Arts. So we get the kids to get them engaged in the work that is filmmaking, because that's the field that they are going to go into. So at least they hop out of school, at least they have a portfolio to their work, right? As opposed to coming out and saying, can I get a job? And you don't have skills, right? Especially because I think the NSA because I was in the NSA, it teaches you more the drama theater space than the filmmaking space, which is a lot more commercial and it's easier to sustain yourself in that space, I imagine. So yeah, that's how I got into the space with teaching the kids film, and they've been making films over the past few months on their cell phones. So it's been quite a very interesting journey with them, and our goal is really, like I said, because of being incapacitated and not having a lot of people, is that we only in such limited spaces. But our goal is to be in a number of schools so that we can have that kind of festival where maybe we have different schools showcasing their films. You know.
How many schools are you working with now?
We're currently working with 3. We're currently working with 3, but we do want to grow. And what we really want to do is encourage active citizenry among artists all around the board, right?
Man, I read that in your profile, and I was so impressed by that. I'd like to go into what it means to be active citizens. And before we do that, because I mean that's just going to be a whole world of discussion. Before we do that, I wanted to understand, where does the National School of the Arts fit in terms of your background? Because I know you also graduated in commerce.
Yes.
What was the degree?
I did BCom Law.
BCom Law.
Yes.
So you finished your BCom Law.
Yeah.
And you still also did, you studied at the NSA.
Yes. So NSA is high school. That's where I went for high school, but that was obviously a short span of high school. And that really, I was fortunate enough to go there because my parents don't really have a background in the space, so we had to encourage them to allow me to go there.
How did you encourage them?
It was I had to rally with my father because he really helped us get into a good school and he felt like he was giving us the best education possible, and me asking to go to a school where we want to do art, was quite, he didn't really understand it. So I kind of got my teachers, because they're the ones who encouraged me to go to the school. So I got my teachers to write them a letter to my father to allow me to go to the school, which was really, really helpful, because once I got there in like grade 10. So I knew that I had 3 years less than the people who were there. So I kind of had to work a lot harder because I had less time, right, to grasp all the information. And I think that really helped me to kind of also appreciate the opportunity to be in the space. Because I think what you find when you do go to art school is that familiarity breeds contempt, and you kind of, you don't really treat the craft with as much respect as it deserves. And so for me, it was always that I need to catch up, I need to catch up, and until
you were chasing all the way.
Yeah, so until the end, and then you're like, okay,
this
was lovely. This was lovely, and I really want to do this. And so when then varsity comes, and then you say you want to pursue. And it's like, dude, can you stop now? So
right now you gotta get serious.
Yeah, now you gotta get serious. So that's how I got into.
You couldn't get anybody to send your dad a letter at that point.
In varsity, no. At that point, he was like, but I appreciate it,
Yeah.
My roommate, my roommate always used to say that you connect the dots looking backwards.
Yeah.
And I'm really understanding the virtue of having gone to school and completed that BCom law, because it serves me everywhere I go, And I think it'll continue to serve me going forward. So I think there's always virtue in just being educated, and also I'm understanding now that there's really nothing to rush for, and now, like I mentioned, that I'm going to go study next year again, You realize that, there's whatever we're chasing outside of school, it's so important to, just educate yourself. So I'm appreciating where I am in the space, and just basking in knowledge, man, because I really, really appreciate just learning as much as I can.
So which aspect of the arts did you focus on at the NSA?
So I did drama.
Yeah?
I did drama, but what I think I did, which is even serving me till this day, is that I was very intentional about engaging with different departments.
Oh.
So you have your different majors, your dance, your drama, your music, and your art. So what I did was, which was something that the school did the school did as a big thing, but I did it independently, is that I did a musical.
Really?
So I got the music guys to do our music, the dance people to choreograph for us, the drama students to act, and the art guys to build our sets.
Yeah.
And what that has helped me with is, even now my friends are scoring my film, the guys who are doing my musical.
Yes.
So you understand that, like I'm saying, that there's you connect the dots looking backwards, So now these guys, they've just created such an amazing score on the film.
Really?
So so it's really just building those relationships and being able to engage in different spaces. I think that's what it allowed me to do.
When you were at the National School of the Arts, did you entertain the idea of a BCom law at that point, or was that so far out of your sphere of interest that you weren't even going to consider it?
I think because I was extremely academically inclined, and I being like I was very dedicated in the academic space, really, because I understand my parents make a lot of sacrifices, my father and my mother made extreme sacrifices for me to be able to even be in a space where I'm being educated, so I never took that for granted, and that's how I kind of really made the most out of it. So it was extremely, like, I was really, really dedicated, and that's how the opportunities came for me to study things that were even like outside of the arts, because I had that option, So and my mother was a business teacher. Oh. My father is in business, and he's in engineering, so science and engineering. So that's how I kind of got into that space. But personally, I actually wanted to do African literature. No, my father was not having it. But I appreciate that, and I look forward to possibly going back, because like I said, that I really just want to keep on just staying in school.
There are so many dots for you to join in retrospect.
100%.
And there's so many things that we're going to pick up on, because we're going to take a short break now and come back to Ntokozo, who's going to tell us about his journey moving forward, and also how he intends to spend the rest of 2025.
2025.
919 has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, programming that is not harmful to children and that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. If you think we're not living up to that code, you can inform the BCCSA. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa to PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024, or email the BCCSA at napsa.co.za. For more information, visit the bccsa.co.za. We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for reality radio as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
And we're back. Ntokozo Mlaba is our special guest on Reality Radio on 919 this Friday night. In conversation with me, Jack Devnarain, I am fascinated, Ntokozo, because you have already accumulated in your young years such a depth of academic knowledge, practical experience in the arts, made so many connections, and you have a vision for the future. So, at the point that you graduated out of the National School of the Arts, you're looking now, you're considering your options going into WITS, right?
Yes.
And what was it about BCom law that was appealing to you?
Nothing. Nothing at all. But yeah, nothing. I like I said, I think my first year, I remember being like, I'm just doing this for my parents, you know?
Yeah.
And then failing my first test, and I'm like, I cannot afford to fail, you know?
Yeah. Reality hits at that
and
point.
then you're like, okay, cool, let me take this a bit more serious. But I was part of the COVID year. Like 2020 was my varsity year, first year. So that meant we were at home most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was, because school kind of took place online, so you could study whenever or watch the videos whenever. I kind of treated my days like I was in film school, because I'd make films during the day and then like in the midnights do my modules in law, you know. So yeah, that's how I kind of engaged with it, which also enabled me to engage with the craft of filmmaking, you know, and also just really just make and create. And I really also missed being in that space, because I think you don't really understand you don't know what failure looks like. Yeah. Because you're just making, right? And I think that was such a pure space to be in. But yeah, in terms of the filmmaking, in terms of the BCom law, it wasn't necessarily anything that was like that drew me to it. But I think closer to the end, I understood the importance of it, you know, and sometimes I wish I could have taken it a bit more serious, you know, because I think there's a lot. I think education is such a beautiful thing, you know, and any opportunity that you get to learn, you should really just grab it with both hands, because there are some people who don't have that privilege. So
that's so true. It's good you mentioned that, because I mean, in a way, also earlier you were saying that you have such gratitude and appreciation for your parents and their sacrifice, giving you the education, the options that became available to you. Yeah, and I think that, you know, the fact that you have been able to find opportunities for yourself. You were putting in the work, let's make no mistake. I mean, you were doing your modules in law, but at the same time, you were also learning the craft of filmmaking. And that was entirely, you know, your commitment to it.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I guess that's what life is about, right? Like, how do you make the most of the opportunity that you have, right? So if my parents come from underprivileged backgrounds, I'm now existing in a space where I've got opportunity that they didn't have. How do I make the most of it? You know, especially understanding that this craft is so unstable. So you can't really it's not like law, or it's not like the other fields where you kind of have a direct lane where you're going to end up. You know that you're going to get a job at some point, you know? Yeah. In this space, you know how it is, you know?
Precarious.
100%. Yeah. So how do you almost differentiate yourself from the crowd? You I don't have connections. I don't I don't know people. So I know that I have to put in the work so that at least I have something that speaks for me. And I think that's what's kind of served me where I am right now, where I can walk into a space. Like, I'm just thinking about just the privilege of being in this room with you and having this conversation.
Sure.
If it wasn't for like sacrifices and like making the most of those opportunities, I wouldn't be able to have the conversation, with you here.
Right.
So it's these kind of things that I can easily take for granted, but it's a massive opportunity, So I think in understanding that and just really making the most of that has been something that has served me in the long run.
And what's been your inspiration when it comes to the world of movie making? You're looking at stuff from around the world. Are you looking at South African film, TV, American, obviously, because there's so much of it out there?
Yeah.
What are some of the other sources of inspiration you've had when it comes to filmmaking?
I think it changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think it changes constantly, and I think the more you learn, like for example, I right now, like I was just telling you, like local stuff is not something that I'd put up there because I understand what is the standard, right? But it changes. But I'm very big into theater.
Oh,
so I think that's really what kind of I think theater is my first love. Like, that's really what's opened, like, because it stretches you, right? You never know what's gonna happen, and I think we have some of the best theater, So being able to engage in that space has also really impacted my filmmaking, which is something my editor said. He said, I understand why you have the voice that you have, because it tells that we can tell that you have this theater background, even your staging,
Okay.
So yeah, because when I mentioned that I'm big in theater, he said it makes sense, So that's really what has helped me. But also now I'm really engaging in outside of Hollywood, like stuff that's outside of Hollywood. But like really the artsy stuff. I really like that, and because I think the independent stuff, because I want to understand what is it that works on a distribution level for film that's not in the Hollywood structure.
Yeah.
So that we're able to so I understand that I can emulate that from here, and because. I mean, what we look at, for example, I'm extremely inspired by the work of your Jamils, I'm extremely inspired by the work that the known associates guys are doing, with how they're really making the filmmaking space, like the craft of filmmaking and not TV, filmmaking itself, and like really opening it up and making the opportunities possible for us to come in and actually make the most of it, So yeah, on a local level, those are the people that I really look up to, like especially the producers, because I'm always like, I think a lot of credit goes to Jamil, but my friends know how much respect I have for Layla, those kinds of people, for the Tepisos, those people who are like the behind the scenes, who are making the deals. You just imagine what's going on. For example, even with Jovicho, like I've got so much respect for Lodi, who was Vincent Mloy's producer. So I'm very big on studying the game and understanding, like, okay, cool, these are the things that work, and also kind of breaking it down and asking myself, why did it work?
Right.
So like even also your bomb, people look at, obviously there was Taditeboho and Angus, but then there's also Desiree who's fighting behind, So I think it's also, excuse me, I try to look at those things and look at what is it that works for these people. Okay, they have these people that are fighting for them behind the scenes, and I think that's something that I'm also looking, just building that tribe, and that's where Umphakathi Artists comes in, Just building
and that's what
community.
I wanted to pick up on, because you mentioned earlier about building a community.
100%.
And what was your vision for Umphakathi, and how you were going to use that as a vehicle to create active artists in your community, and what does it mean to generate that activity amongst people?
So we actually co-founded Umphakathi Artists back in high school with my partner Ntokozo Mlaba.
Yeah.
And like I said, we had the theater background. So
Yes.
what I was kind of applying, because I'm very big on studying the game, was applying back in the day, they had the community artist groups. So
Yes.
in Mboweni Gamma had committed artists, your John Gunny and Arthur Fugard had serpent players, those communities where people come together and create. Because what I understood is that that's really our currency, our ability to create, because we don't have anything else other than that ability. So how do we get together and create? And slowly that has slowly evolved, and now because we're in the opportunity, now we have the opportunities to create. How do we almost create opportunities for other people and also for ourselves to build communities? Because I think there's a yearning among young people to have community and also to contribute. We just don't know how to do so, you know? And so that's why, for example, now I just shot a film. There were so many people asking to be on our set.
Oh, really? Okay.
You know, and you have that, you're like, you know, there's only so many people we can have on the set, you know? So it's really understanding that. But like what we want to do is grow a space where young artists can have a place where they belong, and also spread ourselves out in that active citizenry where everybody kind of builds for this community, but then we go out and then we contribute to the communities where we come from. And so that's what matters to us.
And also I think it's important for artists, for performers generally, to be able to discover their voice. And you often find your voice, the things that interest you, the direction that you want to take, the interpretations you have based on what you see in the world around you. You've got to be alongside other performers in order to discover where your unique perspective lies. And do you find also that this is part of what the community function is?
100%. I think right now we're in a space where we're like social media is supposed to bring us together, but we are very isolated, right?
Right. Okay.
And I think what we want to also create is a space where we can come together and be honest about the realities of our space. Because we know that it's quite a tough space, you know. And I think being able to come together and be like, this is what I'm struggling with, or this is what I'm, you know, how do we come together as a writers group and write together, or encourage each other? Okay, this is not working. This is what you need to work on. You know, those are the kinds of things that we want to build among ourselves, so that also we hold each other accountable to our dreams. We hold each other accountable to the standards that we want to maintain. Because it's one thing to also criticize the space, then you find yourself in the space. And then what do you say then? You know, so I think it's really important that that's what we try to do to kind of understand this is how the space works, because we have a perception, right? But then you come and become a practitioner, and then you understand, okay, there's only so much that you can do, but how can we kind of stretch that? You know,
So the collaborations become important then.
Yes.
And I suppose you learn to trust the people that you work with because they're challenging you, right?
Yes. So it's like that. It's really building that tribe, you know. And I think what happens is that when people see us working, they really want to be a part, because I think we started out with just a few of us, and now it just keeps on growing. But the biggest thing is that we want to encourage people, because now we're even in the social media age where we don't have to meet physically, like you were speaking now about virtual meetings, you know. We don't have to meet physically, but I think we can have a community artist branch in Cape Town that we've never met, but they want to make an impact in their space, you know. So how can we kind of engage with them from there, or KZN, etc. I think because there's artists everywhere, right? And I think we can all use our art in the spaces that we exist to make that impact wherever we can.
And I see also that in terms of how the access to resources, and this is something I know you want to comment on, there are places that have more resources than others, and sometimes you can share them. For example, there's stuff going on in the Western Cape to do with developing gaming. And you'll have animation. There's a lot of stuff happening in animation in the Western Cape, a lot of stuff with animation going on in Gauteng. But we've got to be able to find ways to make technology accessible, resources accessible, so that people can develop their own ideas, even if it's like, you know, just the entry-level kind of software or techniques that they can use. We've got to be able to share these things across national boundaries, so that ideas are being shared. So like the example, as you say, is Umphakathi Artists could have a branch down in Cape Town.
Yeah, 100%. I think I just had the opportunity to go to the Locarno Film Festival in Switzerland.
Oh, wonderful.
Just before the conference, actually, we met. And there, I remember just walking around, and because it was a youth program. So I told one of the guys I'd spent a lot of time with, I'm like, you know, the thing is about the difference between us and you guys here in Europe, it's not by any means talent. It's not that you guys are more talented or you guys are more gifted or anything. It's because you guys have access to resources.
That's the key. I'm going to come back to that. Your international exposure is going to be, I think that's going to set you up for so much more to come in your career. But we're going to take a break, and then we'll go back to your trip to Switzerland. Ntokozo Mlaba, right here on Reality Radio. We're taking a break. We'll be back after this.
No two celebrations are alike. They are as unique as you are. Some moments are meant to last a lifetime. Situated in the heart of Sandton, we at the Wesley Hotel and Spa create experiences that are as unique as your milestones. Whether it's a baby shower, a weekend with friends, health and wellness retreats, or celebrating life's special moments, every detail is tailored to you. Celebrate what matters most at the venue that turns moments into lasting memories. Plan your next event at the Wesley Hotel and Spa. Visit thewesley.co.za for more details.
We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for Reality Radio, as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
Reality Radio on a Friday night with me, Jack Devnarain, and my special guest, Ntokozo Mlaba. Tell me about what was it like walking into this arts festival in Switzerland. What were your first impressions?
So I think let me actually speak about how I got there.
Yeah. That's a story on its own, right?
That's 100% a story on its own. I did a crowdfunding to fund my trip there because the different departments, the funding cycles were closed at that point, right? So I was like, okay, cool. This is a massive opportunity. I've been chosen among a group of people, a large pool of selection. So I was like, okay, cool. I really have to try and make a plan to go. So I reached out to my community, and they got me to Switzerland. So and that was my first time out the country. So I think that's really something. That's
your first time out of the country 100%. Was this international trip to Switzerland.
So it was extremely humbling. I think the process and the story itself is just something of the movies. I think I was extremely grateful. And a lot of the creative industry also hopped on board because I just reached out to people I'd worked with and industry professionals who would make me, or people I'd met at film festivals saying, "Yo, I had this opportunity. Can you can you please help me?" So I'm extremely grateful for that. And that's how I got to Switzerland. And
I love that.
It was quite a beautiful process, I think. Excuse me. And the way that things are done on that side, and the way festivals work there, you really understand the standard. And that's like how films are shown, how films are consumed, the town itself, so it was really, really special. And I think I'm extremely grateful for that opportunity. Like you said, that international exposure has kind of opens your eyes to what's possible, The way the festival just integrates into the city, the whole city almost stands still. And every store you can see that merchandise from the festival. And I was curious. I was like, why? Because I'm sure that our local film festival programmers do go to international film festivals, and they see these things, and I'm wondering why don't we implement it? Because I think these things create such an economic opportunity to involve different parties and not just the film, but how do you involve the tourism sector, which is amazing now that KZN is, merged with the tourism sector.
That's right.
How do you involve tourism? How do you involve hotels, transports, to make sure that there's a swift movement between spaces, those kinds of things. So I think it presents an opportunity, and that's something that I want to explore next year, because we have this program called the People's Bioscope. So we facilitate screenings every month, but what we did this year is that we showcased in 16 different areas around Soweto, for a film in 16 areas around Soweto during June 16.
Yeah.
So next year, we're going to have time to flesh it out, because that was really just a spur of the moment idea. But next year, having time to flesh it out,
Okay,
we really want to give it an idea of, because another thing is that the community is the one who facilitates the program.
Okay.
So it was so amazing. It was
You have so many ideas. Just you're like a runaway train right now. Let me just take you back.
please.
This idea that you have, that you felt the experience in Switzerland where this entire town was totally absorbed by the festival that was taking place. So everything that you saw in the town was leaning towards supporting the festival that was happening there.
Yes.
So there was integration in the city services
100%, yeah.
and in
Buses,
the public spaces that
yeah.
you saw. So you've attended, like, as an example, the Durban Film Art, Durban International Film
Yeah.
Festival, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what could they be looking at in order to make changes to reflect more of that that involvement, like you saw in Switzerland?
Yeah.
Because I think it becomes necessary that when you are having, especially if it's an international festival, that you are showing that you are proud of what you're showcasing, that there's talent that's now, this town is the epicenter of the cultural activity that that the festival is focused on, right? You are also showcasing the town itself. You're showcasing
100%.
the hospitality of the people there.
Yes.
And you're showcasing obviously the whatever films are being put up for display. Now, there's so much going on there, but it's integrated, and there's congruency, so that there's no part of the festival that's isolated from another part. Everything speaks together. It's as if the town itself is welcoming you to appreciate this moment.
Yes.
What do you think are some of the things that Durban could do, just as an example, so that it becomes more congruent in terms of having, as they say, this is the longest running film festival in the country, in Africa?
No, I don't think Africa. I don't know if Africa, but I think in the country, yes.
Well, I mean, certainly in the country, but
I'm not
I
sure
think
if
they do
Africa.
market it as the oldest in Africa.
In Africa, okay, I'll check it out. But yeah, I think I actually did think about that, and I did think of Durban specifically because I just come from Durban, right?
Okay.
For the Durban Film Festival and film art. So I think another thing is that, like, Durban is an amazing city, right? And I think a mistake that I'm also understanding that what we can't do is apply a slap bang or the business model that works that side. We can't apply it to this side.
Fair enough.
And that's what's happened with our cinema. You know?
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, how do we then, when you ask how do we integrate it into the city, where is the city? You know? Because the reality is that you have these spaces like your K-Cap in Guamashu.
Yeah.
You know, you have centers in Mlazi. You know, you have these different spaces where people can exist. And also then you also almost create a tourism thing for like touring the township also.
Yes,
you know,
of
the
course.
way in Cape Town you tour Langa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So how do you almost create also centers there, because people have to come almost to the city to come and enjoy whatever festival things are happening there. But how do you almost take it also to the people down? You know, so I think it's quite an extended thing, but I think also involving the hotels themselves, because there's that line there that's just by the coast,
the Golden Mile.
There's so many hotels there, and how do you involve those hotels? Because a lot of people come to the festivals and stay in those hotels. So how do you involve the hotels into the festivals? You know, so I think, but I don't think that Durban is doing a very amazing job. I just think that it's really how do they apply it to the city itself, because how do you take it to the people themselves?
That's right. You need for people to buy into it.
100%.
Like you need the citizens of Durban to say, this is important to us, and we want to reflect how important it is, because our visitors, our guests are so important to us, besides the event itself.
Yeah, and I think another thing that South Africans have, what we also saw with the Soweto Bioscope screenings, that there's a desire for these things to take place in their communities, but they just don't know about it. right?
Okay.
And if they did know about it, they'd want to take part and they'd be so proud of it.
Yeah.
And they'd protect it, you know. So I think, how do you almost make it a property that belongs to the city and its people?
Yeah.
You know, as opposed to just people coming from outside, coming from different countries and coming here to consume and then leaving.
You know, like you said, the question you asked earlier was so profound. You know, what is the city? Which part of the city are you talking about?
Yeah.
Because people tend to, they will relegate the township spaces into, well, those are residences for township people. The township is separate from the town. The city is different from the township. And so when we create activities within the city, then almost by definition, we're excluding the township.
Yes.
So I don't know. Somehow we've got to be able to create the energy. Just a question that's just come to me now, though, is the character of art that comes from within that township life, does it have a character of its own that's distinct from art, maybe from the inner city vibe? The energy, is that different? Do you like the short movies you're making that's rooted in township life? Does it have a distinctly different character from stuff that comes out from anywhere else in the city or the town?
I really don't think so. I think I've been asked this question about, like, is there a specific movie that would work better?
Right. Okay,
you know, type of thing, those kinds of questions. But the reality is that there is a Stokeniko in Soweto,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
and which is closing down. But so you can show movies, but if it's not, I think, geared towards the people and marketed properly, it doesn't matter. But I think that there are people who have taste, and like you and me, we have two different tastes. And you'll find that even if you go to the township, if it's not something that's commercially viable, the same way that it worked, in the inner city or the town, is the same way that would work in the township, where some people would like it, some wouldn't.
Sure.
I just think that people need to have that choice, you know?
Are we marketing movies, though? Like the exhibitors, there are only so many exhibitors we have in this country. And the biggest players amongst the exhibitors, the big movie theaters, they seem to apply a certain template, a certain model when it comes to what movies do we have, how long do they stay on these screens, and how do we market them. And so the question is, are we paying attention to whether the marketing exercise, whether the curation exercise is actually speaking to the audience?
I think the questions you're asking me are questions I'm asking myself.
Fair enough. Because I also really want to know.
Yeah, I think I don't really have answers to that. But I'm really trying to understand is, can we not build a different business model? Because I think this business model doesn't belong to us.
Yeah.
We don't have that financial capacity to be exercising this model the way it's been exercised, you know? And the reason why, for example, the bioscopes worked in apartheid is because that if Ayetu was catered to the audience in Soweto, you know, and we know that your Stokenikos were segregated, you know, but now it's open, but still there's that economic disparity that exists in South Africa.
Yeah.
And so you're applying the same model. Tickets are so expensive, and you're not even only considering tickets. You still have to get to the theater. You have to get home. You know. So I think I'm trying to look at how do we build a different business model. You know, how do we make corporate hop in to sponsor corporate citizenship initiatives that will get people to come and watch movies, because maybe they may not buy a ticket, but they will buy bread. So why don't we get a bread company to sponsor a movie chain of, you know, something like that. So for me, the work that I'm doing with Umphakathi Artists, or the work that we're doing really, is how do we build those audiences so that whenever you see something that says Ntokozo Mlaba offering, you know that it's a product that you want to go and watch.
Sure.
And so when you have that demand, or that demand of the audience on the ground, you're able to go into corporate and say, hey guys, look, this is what we've got. These are the numbers we have.
And before we even get to the corporate sponsors, talk to me about what makes your bioscope model unique and what makes it special. How do people connect with it?
I think it's how things were done long ago. So I don't think it's necessarily unique in the sense that, like, we've build something that's new.
Sure.
But really, it's something that it's how movies were consumed back in the days. You know,
Right.
that's how our parents watched movies. Bioscopes, you know, they've used to just put up a sheet and watch a movie.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what cinema is. It's a
Absolutely.
communal experience.
Yeah,
Now we're just trying to make a buck out of it. But
Yeah.
really, what it is how do you get people to? And that's what how do we get people to just watch a movie and you get to see people's expressions of something that you created, and that's what it is. People coming together and engaging in this piece of work, you know. And now the saddest part is that you go to a cinema, it's you and one person, and you know, it's the most. And that's how we, for example, that's how we got Mapansula. I reached out to Sir Oliver, and I just told him, hey, I went to go watch your movie, I love it, but it was just me and one other patron in the cinema.
Yeah.
The reality is that cinemas are expensive, theater is expensive, but this film needs to be watched.
Sure.
So how do we take this film back and make it be seen by the people where it was made? And that's really what happened. We took it back to Orlando where it was
Really?
shot 36 years ago
Yeah.
in the same exact space. So it was quite special.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's really, I think we're really defining and we're creating a narrative and creating our own spaces, because another thing is that it's hard for me to get into a cinema also. It's hard for me to break into a cinema. It's hard for me to break into a streamer.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Just the process of movie making itself.
100%.
So we're going to talk about some of the obstacles that you've had to face and how to overcome them, because as you say, you're building a completely new model. And right now, let's just take a quick break. That's the first obstacle we're going to deal with, taking a break and then coming back on the other side of the obstacle, talking to Ntokozo Mlaba on Reality Radio 919.
919 has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, programming that is not harmful to children and that does not amount to hate speech or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. If you think we're not living up to that code, you can inform the BCCSA. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa to PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024, or email the BCCSA at napsa.co.za. For more information, visit the bccsa.co.za. We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for Reality Radio, as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
And we're back. It is Reality Radio 919 with me, Jack Devnarain. And we are in conversation this evening with Ntokozo Mlaba. The process of filmmaking, surely, as we were just mentioning now in the break, has to evolve. And we have to be able to create an enabling environment instead of making it so difficult to access, whether you're a filmmaker or whether you simply want to go and watch something. We've got to take away, we've got to lower those obstacles in some way. And what are some of the obstacles you are confronted with as an amateur filmmaker, an independent filmmaker right now?
Yeah, I think like it's where to from here, right? Because I think another thing is, or that another sad reality, excuse me, is that there's the sharing of knowledge in the space is very minimal. And that's why I go to all the film festivals, because I just try to grab as much and be a sponge as much as possible, because it's so hard to get a mentor. It's hard to get somebody who's going to take you through the process of really what it takes, you know? And so, like you're saying, as an independent filmmaker of just a short film, what I'm trying to do now is really understand the process of filmmaking all the way through to distribution and sales. Because I think what this is, it's creating for me, it's almost a microcosm of how the business works as a whole. And so if I teach myself with this small film how to kind of work through the marketing process, or even before, work through the financing and raising those finances and work through that and come all the way to production and distribution and marketing. How do I understand those different models? I just think because it's so much there's such little teaching taking place.
Yeah.
And in the practice itself that's what's also creating a boundary. But I think not to bash the structures and seniors as much. I think for me what it is that we're dedicating ourselves to this thing.
Yeah.
And we'll figure it out one way or the other, you know.
Well, you already have in so many ways. How many sites are you working on with the Bioscope?
So we work differently depending on the finances, but we showcase where we can at that moment.
Okay.
Because we can't showcase at the same place or at the same area on the same day or type of thing, you know. But that's the goal. That's the goal, because when I make my feature, I will have established connections with probably, let's say, 56 different areas around the country.
Good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if I say, okay, I'm releasing a movie weekend, let's say I release a love film and then it releases around Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
In every city around the country, 56 different areas, and you get people, you fill in those spaces and they are packed.
Love that.
How can we build that? That's the model that we're looking at.
What are some of the story ideas that you like to cover, given that you're from your township space and you know your township stories? Do you want to reflect on those issues and those social difficulties, or do you want to have a more universal storytelling model? What are some of your fellow independent filmmakers telling stories about?
So for me, I come from different places, so I have the privilege of being situated in the urban space, but also growing up having access to the village, going home in KZN.
In KZN? Where about?
In Ngotu. It's like just northern KZN. But So northern KZN, and also just the different townships being situated around. So I've been in between, you know.
Yeah.
So that's also kind of given me perspective, really. But I think what we have is the young filmmakers coming up and the independent filmmakers coming up, they really, really kind of stretching what this film model can become, you know, because I think it's like that thing where we don't really know the limitations. So personally for me, with this trilogy of films, I'm the film that I just made now sits as a second part of a trilogy of short films that I've made on my take of the issues.
It's called The Passage, right?
The Passage, yes.
Okay, great.
So it sits as a trilogy, a second part of this trilogy that I'm making on my take of the issues that plague the hood.
Okay.
But really, that's not necessarily something that it's something that I want to create only, or the subject matter that I only want to create, which is something also I think that we need to also address as just filmmakers, you know, because I think I can make a horror movie and then also come back and make a comedy or a love story, you know, and I think being able to have that, I just think in South Africa, because when you're making something, it's probably like it's going to take you so many other years to make the next one.
Right.
It has to be something that you're married to, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it's really just exploring. That's what it is. That's what creating is. It's really just trying to find it. And when we make it, you know, we make it again and we make another one and we just try to find it over and over.
Yeah.
You know, which is why I think, you know, I really like what the Yellowbone team has been able to do with just how the films and the different genres of where they sit. What they've been able to do is something that's really inspiring on the matter of studying what's possible locally, you know. So I think that's something that young filmmakers are coming in and really stretching what this model can become, and I think it's an exciting space.
Talk to us about The Passage. What story is it? What's going on in The Passage?
So The Passage is my next offering.
Yeah.
Very, very exciting. It's a short film that tackles gender-based violence.
Okay.
It looks at how all men are susceptible to being perpetrators of rape and assault or party to that because of the space that they occupy in society and the perpetuation of patriarchy. And this for me has been a very personal story. I think now currently we have situation that's happening on social media around consent, you know, it's really making waves there. And I think for me, it's also understanding that there's such little education that's taking place. So what we plan to do with this film is really go to different schools and have those conversations around what these things mean. Because another thing is we don't know how to translate what patriarchy means. We don't know how to translate what masculinity, misogyny, what do those things mean in vernacular, you know? So that they could be understood on the ground, because I think it's the most subtle things from catcalling. So really that's what my film looks at. It looks at the male gaze on, or the male's perspective on this scourge that's taking place within our country.
It's fascinating you picked that up, because I was on X a few days ago and looking through my feed, and there was a comment there, and it was from an account. It was clear to me that it was a woman, and her post simply said, somebody catcalled me today while I was on my way to work, and it really made me feel good about myself. Something like that. That's what and I really wanted to ask her, like, are you being serious?
Yeah.
Because what we are being taught as men is you simply may not ever, because that is super disrespectful and it is unacceptable behavior, and it is chauvinistic and insulting and offensive to women when you do something like that. And it, at the same time, and I mean, I was typing this out, and then the whole feed disappeared, and I couldn't find it again. And I was so irritated, because I really wanted to know, what are we missing as men? Because for a woman to say that there was something about, being catcalled that was somehow made her feel better about herself.
I'm glad you didn't type that. I think that there's a reason why that feed disappeared.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because I don't think Twitter's a space to have that conversation.
Yeah.
I think why I'm saying that is because, like you're saying, it's such a delicate conversation, such a delicate subject matter, that you don't want to find yourself on the wrong end of the stick.
Could it have been a trap?
100%. And not necessarily that,
wow,
like this, but what I'm saying is that it's a very delicate conversation. And I think it needs to be treated with that delicacy. So it can't take place at a place like on a platform like X, where nobody wants to listen to the other person, or nobody wants to understand the other person.
Yeah.
So even with the conversations that we want to have in the schools, we want to be able to have a space where we want to make it a safe space so that we can have a genuine conversation among students, so that they can understand, because this is such a big issue.
Yeah.
And that's why, for example, we're even going to have professionals. We're partnering with other gender-based violence organizations, because I'm not a professional. I may have done the research for the film, but I understand that it exists on it's such a delicate conversation that, for example, you're saying that she says she likes catcalling, but for somebody that spoils her whole week,
right?
And so it's that, when do you know which line to cross, or how far do you go? Somebody last week told me that Joburg men are slow, because she comes from in KZN, and Zulu guys, they're pretty, and I was like, and I was like, okay, I think also in the space that we exist, you'd rather be called slow, rather that than a mistake.
But then, did you get a sense that when the woman was reflecting on that she was almost mocking the Joburg men?
Yes, 100%. No, 100. But also, I think, but I understand, because people don't exist in a vacuum, and that's the thing. Societies are so different. Our regions are so different, right? And that's why you can't apply Joburg consciousness to KZN or the rural, That's the thing. It's such a, and that's the thing about movies, right? Like and setting, right? That's the thing about movies and setting and authenticity in that you understand that there's a way that things are done in specific areas, and when you get it right, for example, my movie is extremely rough and it's ugly, really? and because of the setting. But I also understood, and we made sure that we shared it with the gender-based violence organization just to check it out and see if it's appropriate, because also, like, I don't want to find myself on the wrong end of the stick also.
Yeah, you could be triggering
100%,
a certain reaction.
100%.
I just wanted to ask, is the message coming from a young person like yourself, being portrayed and the bioscope happening in a school environment, or the characters being depicted as school-going people, is the message easier to access coming from you than if it was like maybe an older filmmaker, like somebody like myself, that made a film about gender-based violence and misogyny and rape, and then we took it to schools? Do you think there would be a barrier to people receiving the message?
I think if you're coming with the film, like carrying it on your backpack, maybe, but because films exist outside of the filmmaker, if you do your research and I don't think film has really a face. And I think we'd like it to have a face because we know who the filmmakers are. But if I'm just consuming a movie that speaks what it's, that just says what it says, I don't think I'm overly pedantic about. But I think there are nuances that sometimes people miss if you don't really understand. And that's why consulting is so important.
Right, so you do a lot of homework before you
100%, especially with this one, because I knew I was actually very worried about the narrative, and it's a very delicate conversation, especially locally.
Do you have an idea of where your third part of the trilogy is going to go?
Yes.
Is it already?
Yes.
Oh wow, fantastic.
No, it's gonna come. It's gonna be about alcoholism.
Yeah.
So the films, like I said, it's my take of the issues that plague the hood. The first one deals with generational curses in a black family. The second one is obviously gender-based violence in the township, and also the third one deals with alcoholism. So for me, it's like really a lovely thing that is just going to sit as this library of my contribution to African cinema. And yeah, it's really exciting.
One quick question before we close. Does your arts project include live theatre as well?
Yes, the problem is that theatre is not profitable.
Yes, I get you.
But we actually had a theater play this year. I'd love to do a theater play every year, just one, because I love it so much. The problem is that you put so much work into it, and I think but maybe when I'm able to just manage, because I think it would be lovely to just create, right?
I get you. Creating is what we do.
We lovely to just create and exist in that space of just creating, but like there's bills and all of that stuff.
And to see it all come to life. But I mean, you've got the best of both worlds, from your BCom law to the Umphakathi Actors group and everything that you do. We wish you all the best. I hope that the path does really well, the second part of your trilogy. You have an incredible future. I'm so impressed, and it's such a pleasure to sit with you today and hear the ideas that you have, and the way that you've shared them is so encouraging as well. So, Ntokozo, thank you so much for joining us on Reality Radio, and thank you. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We're going to see you next Friday night. So enjoy, be safe.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.